Well, Previn Gordhan is a known quantity for investors. They know him, they trust him. I think that the concern that a lot of international investors have is the varying interpretations of why he is in trouble at the moment. There are people, I think the ultimate concern would be that President Zuma wants to be rid of him in order to compromise the independence and the integrity of economic and financial policy making in South Africa. That's probably exaggerated, but that's something that is real in the sense that investors are worried about it. There's also the question of whether Mr. Gordhan's work at the tax service has made him enemies among Mr. Zuma's entourage, and that there is an effort to be rid of him, just to sort of take revenge on him for investigating the finances of people that don't appreciate being investigated. For the moment, we don't believe that Previn Gordhan is going anywhere. I think the key question is the downgrade question. If in December, if South Africa is downgraded, it will become easier for Mr. Zuma to dispense with Mr. Gordhan, assuming that he wants to do that. But I think in reality, this is all about the party conference at the end of next year and the beginning of the succession process and the ability of President Zuma to choose his own successor. So what investors are looking for is a show of strength from South African institutions. What they want to see is Previn Gordhan stay where he is. They want to see that Previn Gordhan is strong enough to resist the pressure that he's under. And they want to see President Zuma forced to compromise at the end of next year on who his successor will be. You know, I think it's not that the markets have a uniformly negative view of the ANC, but they're concerned that there are powerful people within the ANC who want to extend the political dominance of that party indefinitely in a way that might compromise the integrity of the institutions that investors care about. I think it's the adaptability of the ANC. When I was here 3 years ago, and I was here with a friend who is a South Africa specialist, we met with a lot of interesting people, including people inside the ANC, senior positions in the ANC, who were very aware of historical precedents in other countries that were relevant to the ANC and to South Africa. So, for example, they understood that the Congress Party in India, which, like the ANC, was a party of liberation that really dominated the politics of that country for 30 years, that it reached a point at which a crisis became inevitable. And the Indian Prime Minister in the late 1970s, after one-party dominance for 30 years, had to declare a state of emergency that lasted longer than a year. And so in the meetings that I was in 3 years ago, the ANC was saying, we're aware of that danger. We don't want that to happen to us. We know that we have to be more adaptable than some, ruling parties are in other emerging market countries. Now, we were talking to technocrats. Clearly, there are senior people in the ANC who don't have that concern. But I think the answer to the question is, what's the key to this transition? Well, it is a big deal that South Africans should not underestimate the fact that you had local elections here, that the DA did very well, that the ANC suffered historic setbacks, and yet there wasn't a lot of violence, there wasn't a lot of turmoil that came out of that, as there would be in a lot of other emerging market countries, and not just in sub-Saharan Africa. That's a good sign for the health of the country. But ultimately, as we look ahead to 2019, even if the ANC wins the election again in 2019, are they willing to make deals with the DA and any other viable opposition party in order to move the country forward? A lot of the criticism of Jacob Zuma is he cares much more about the ANC than he cares about South Africa. I don't know Jacob Zuma, fairly or unfairly, that's the perception. And what investors want to see, and frankly not just investors, a lot of people outside the country want to see a president who understands the need to compromise with the opposition in order to move the country forward so that this country can reach the potential that everyone knows that it has. Hillary Clinton is going to win. Our view from the very beginning is that Hillary Clinton was going to win. At the beginning of the race, we assigned a 75% level of confidence, 75% chance that Hillary Clinton would beat Donald Trump. We're now at 80%, and that's probably conservative. Some of that has to do with Donald Trump, who he is. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that in the United States, there are just more Democrats than there are Republicans. If you combine Democrats and people who call themselves independents but lean toward voting for the Democratic Party, they outnumber Republicans and people who lean Republican. That means that at least at the national level, local politics are very different, but at the national level, it means that anyone who runs for president in the United States as the Republican nominee has to do more than win Republican votes. He has to do more than unify his own party, as Mitt Romney did 4 years ago. They also have to take some Democratic votes. Donald Trump, of the 17 Republicans who ran for president this year, and it really was 17 people, was probably the least well-equipped to do that. Donald Trump hasn't even unified the Republican Party. In fact, 25% of elected Republican officials, state governors, members of the upper house and lower house, 25% of Republican officials have publicly renounced him, which is, I don't remember in my lifetime that happening to the nominee of a party. He's actively melting down. We're 26 days away from the election. Sex scandals will dominate the headlines because Donald Trump has decided to, punish the people who are not giving him what he wants. And it's going to be extremely ugly by historical standards. But in the end, Hillary Clinton is going to win. And it is starting to look like it's not going to be even as close as the Obama victory over Romney 4 years ago, which was, I think, 3.9 percentage points. This may end up being a very big victory, and Hillary Clinton may win some states that haven't voted for a Democrat in a very long time.